The CSGA events are a huge part of my golfing life, and it matters a great deal to me, having been born and raised in Connecticut and grew up playing CSGA events, and they are what inspired me to play golf and keep pursuing it at a high level. And coming back as an amateur a few years ago, they were the opportunities that I had at my disposal. Obviously, I didn't have a list of other tournaments to play or invites into other big major events or anything like that. I mean, that first season in 2020, it was the whole CSGA schedule. That was my schedule, and I loved it. And it was pretty amazing to come back and to feel all of those emotions again, and to be in the mix in a handful of the events. I still think back to that first Connecticut Amateur at Shorehaven, playing with Chris in the finals. That was my first event back as an amateur. It's crazy. That was 3 years ago at this point, but all those emotions and everything are still things I look back on really fondly. From the Palmer Cup this year, what stands out is probably how hard the conditions were. Anyone who plays can remember the second day especially was just incredibly high winds and some brutal conditions to try to score in. I feel like I had a great advantage there, having logged a lot of rounds at Wampanoag. That definitely helped. And yeah, I think that was a big opportunity for me to seal the deal on an event, especially early in the season. Having a lot of close calls, and wanting to come out, and knew I had a good opportunity, especially the way I played in the second round. So yeah, what I remember is a really special kind of closing stretch, knowing I had a pretty sizable lead, and coming up the 18th hole and seeing a kind of big crowd of people around the 18th green. It was a pretty special moment. Before each season, I think about some goals that I want to accomplish. Obviously, I've never really been a person to write them down. This year I actually did write them down. One of the goals is definitely the U.S. Mid-Amateur. I think I've mentioned that to people in the past, and winning the U.S. Mid-Amateur was a big impetus for me to get my amateur status back, really. And all the things that come with it, it would fulfill a lot of dreams and check off a lot more goals for me, which would be to play in a major, to play in a PGA Tour event, to make the cut in a major. Those are goals that I have for myself that I want to accomplish in the next few years. So by winning the U.S. Mid-Amateur, obviously getting to play in the majors the following year, helps sort of further along those other goals. I think next year I will still set some goals and write some goals down, but it's kind of a toss-up between setting goals that are really achievable and then almost feeling like, well, those goals are too easy, versus setting goals that are really, really high and lofty that might be a once-in-a-lifetime kind of achievement, but still setting the goal every year to make sure that you're thinking about it, or at least believing that you can accomplish it. Yeah, the balance between golf and everything else was something I definitely had to learn the last few years. Never something I really had to worry about so much when I was a professional. Pretty much the whole day was at my disposal. So I'm very fortunate, in a lot of ways, that I have a very understanding and loving and supportive wife. So Anna, understands that this is really important to me. This is my passion. This is, I don't really have other things that I do outside of kind of on my free time other than golf, or what I'm doing is somewhat geared toward my golf, whether it's going to see my coach or practicing or playing a tournament or going to the gym. It's all gearing toward golf in some way. It obviously means a tremendous deal to me to win the Player of the Year award, but there's a little more that goes into it behind the scenes, I think, than most people realize. As we talked about, there's a lot of there's a lot more in life as a mid-amateur than there would have been, say, winning this award as a as a junior player, a college player, where the average person might look and say, oh, well, obviously, all they do is play golf. And some people might look at me and say, obviously, all I do is play golf. But, I think for me going forward, one thing that I am proud of is that I know there's actually other things, there are other things that go on in my life besides golf. So I'm proud to just, carry the title of the award and continue playing in all these events while still living, a life that I never really envisioned for myself before, being married and having children and having a job that I love. And those weren't things that I really knew were ever going to happen for me because I was always, again, so focused on playing professional golf for so many years. So honestly, one of my role models, and I've said it to him now, has been Ben Day, because I've watched Ben and known him for so long and seen how, you know, he's a tremendous player, but seeing how he's actually managed all of it between having a very demanding career, 2 children, and still playing, you know, all these events. You know, and he's who I look up to, really, to see, you know, not just who you are as a golfer or a player, but who you are as a man, who you are actually as a person. So that's something that, again, I'm proud to just have the title of Player of the Year, but more proud to hopefully become a better person as the time goes on.